Hello everyone, welcome. Today we will be taking a look at the factors of productions. By the end of this chapter you should be able to define a factor of production, identify the 4 factors of production, describe each factor of production, giving examples, define production, distinguish between production and productivity, match each of the 4 factors of production with its appropriate factor payment, and explain the relationship between factor payments and costs of production. Factors of production are the economic resources that are used to produce goods and services. There are 4 factors of production. They are land, labor, capital and entrepreneurship, or entrepreneurial talent. Factors of production can be classified as human or non-human. The human resources of a country are the labor force and the entrepreneurs. A non-human resource is land. Capital is both a human and a non-human resource. Land is defined as all the naturally occurring free gifts of nature. Labor is the physical and mental effort of man in the production process. Capital refers to all the goods used to produce more goods. Entrepreneurship refers to the risks involved in organizing the other 3 factors for production. An entrepreneur is one who is willing to take on substantial financial risks to begin or organize a business. The entrepreneur organizes the other 3 factors of production. Land is defined as all the factor services available naturally, whether on, above or beneath the Earth's surface. It is made up of all the free gifts of nature. There are different types of the factor: land itself on the Earth's surface that can be used to grow crops or build homes, offices and factories. Land above ground, for example, gases in the atmosphere and the climatic conditions. Seas and rivers, for example, fish in the seas or rivers, and coral reefs for tourists to visit. Resources beneath the Earth, for example, mineral deposits such as bauxite and petroleum. As you might realize, land is another term the economist uses in a special way. Seas and rivers are part of the factor land. Minerals below the Earth's surface and the sunny conditions in the sky are also part of the factor land. Land possesses 3 characteristics that distinguish it from other factors. 1. Land is fixed in supply. The amount of the factor land on the planet Earth is fixed. We can never acquire more in that sense. However, man's ability to tap the resource, land, could increase as he acquires more capital and other resources. For example, the purchase of an additional boat will allow Stingray Caribbean Limited, a seafood company, to catch more fish even though that purchase does not increase the number of fish in the sea. 2. Land has no cost of production. You or I might have to pay for a plot of land on which to build a house. Extracting minerals from the earth requires large amounts of other factors of production. For example, extracting oil from the earth requires large amounts of capital. Preparing a plot of land for agricultural use requires clearing and plowing. However, it never costs society anything to produce the land itself. 3. Land is geographically immobile. Mobility is the ease with which a factor of production can move from one place to another, geographical mobility, or one use, occupation to another, occupational mobility. Some climatic conditions and landscapes are immobile, as they cannot be moved from one place to another. Modern technology is challenging the concept of occupationally immobile land, as land has been reclaimed in many coastal areas, including Singapore and even Port of Spain. Even more spectacular is the creation of islands in the shape of the world in Dubai. Some land is occupationally mobile. The use to which it can be put varies. A plot of land is mobile occupationally in that it can be used to build a house or a factory. Land is an important factor of production. It is used in the production of almost all goods and services. The hairdresser and the doctor use the factor land when supplying their services. So do all factories, large and small. See if you can think of a good or service produced without the use of the factor land. The labor supply refers to those people who are available for work in the economy. The store clerk at Rick Bookstore provides the factor labor. So, too, does the construction worker at the housing development site. Labor has the following characteristics. 1. Labor is the human factor. Labor services are provided by man. 2. Only the worker himself can sell his labor services. In the case of skilled labor, no one else can perform his services. 3. Labor services cannot be stored in the same way as units of land or capital. 4. Labor is geographically and occupationally more mobile than land. And labor is not homogeneous, uniform. Each unit of labor has different skills and abilities. Labor performs a very important function in the production process, as labor represents man in the production process. Now there are improvements in technology, and capital, machinery, is replacing labor. There are expert systems in medicine diagnosing patients' illnesses, and intelligent computers that can make decisions based on data input. However, many producers still choose to retain some labor in production. These producers agree that the human factor is, at this time, still needed, especially for decision making. And who will service and repair the machinery, anyway? There are also some occupations where labor has been replaced by automated systems because of the dangerous nature of the job, for example, nuclear plant operators, or simply to reduce the work involved. In many factories, there is division of labor. This is where the production process is divided into a series of separate tasks. Workers specialize in a task. Specialization occurs when workers focus on a specific task and so become skilled in that area. The labor force is the number of people willing to work in the economy. The total number of hours that they are willing to work is the supply of labor. The supply of labor is dependent on three factors. 1. The size of the population. The larger the population, the larger the supply of labor, and the converse is also true. 2. The proportion of the population willing to work. Those who continue to study after the age of 16, housewives and the disabled decrease the supply of labor. 3. The number of hours worked by everyone. Overtime increases the supply of labor. Capital, in the economic context, refers to goods used to produce more goods. These goods are not wanted for their own sake but, rather, to help in the production of other goods and services. The purchase of capital goods is investment, as such a purchase is not part of current consumption. Capital is yet another term the economist uses in a special way, and it must not be confused with its everyday meaning of money. Capital is, therefore, any man-made goods used in production. The sewing machine used by the village seamstress is her capital. The crane used by port workers to lift heavy containers from ships is also a unit of capital. Capital possesses the following features. 1. Capital is man-made, as opposed to land which is naturally occurring. 2. Units of the same type of capital are homogeneous. 3. Mobility of capital varies with size and the job that the unit of capital is meant to perform. 4. Capital can be imported from other countries. There are different types of capital. 5. Working capital is the raw materials and intermediate goods used in the production process. A higher level of output requires more working capital and a lower level less. 6. Fixed capital comprises the factories and machinery used in production. This remains fixed for a certain range of output. This capital is also called physical capital. 7. Social capital, infrastructure, is normally provided by the government and is made up of roads, schools, hospitals and housing. In some newer housing developments, these might be provided by the developer as a condition of getting planning permission. Generally, government provides this capital to increase the productivity of the workforce. 8. Human capital is another type of capital that economists are now recognizing. Human capital consists of people's abilities, knowledge and skills. This capital is also important to production. For human capital to grow, there must be education, skills training and healthcare for all citizens. Capital accumulation is the increase in the capital stock of a country. For there to be capital accumulation, society must forego present consumption. The public must consume less and save some income. Firms will borrow the funds saved to purchase more capital. The increased capital increases the productive capacity of the country. In recent times, there have been many advances in technology. These advances are making capital more and more versatile. Capital is important, as it is now replacing labor in the workplace. The bottling process in Carob Brewery in Trinidad is now fully automated and so there is no need for workers on the production line. Automated teller machines have replaced bank tellers in many banks. Capital is also important because it can be imported. This means that a country can increase its productive potential by importing capital goods. Entrepreneurship is now regarded as a separate factor of production. In the past, it might have been considered to be part of labor. The entrepreneur performs two functions. First, he combines the other three factors of production in a profitable manner. Second, the entrepreneur is the factor that bears the risk of production. The risk involves paying for the factors required to produce goods before any revenue is received from selling the good produced. Note that the entrepreneur might receive a negative return, loss, for his services, unlike any of the other factors. The entrepreneur is very important in the modern economy because all firms, small and large, start out with an entrepreneur. Such a firm is funded by the owner, entrepreneur, or shareholders who invest in the company. They provide the money to start up the company, and so each bears a risk. The government could also act as an entrepreneur and provide the funds for a public enterprise to set up business. For example, the National Petroleum Company in Trinidad. The entrepreneur is the foundation of the modern economy. In chapters 4 and 6, we will discuss private and public enterprises. Sometimes, economists speak of primary and secondary factors of production. A primary factor of production is one that occurs naturally, such as land or unskilled labor. A secondary factor of production is one created by man or developed in some way. For example, capital, entrepreneurship, or skilled labor. Production can be defined as the conversion of factors of production into goods and services that consumers wish to consume. Goods are tangible products, whereas services are intangible. Bermudez Biscuit Company Limited produces goods such as cheese and crackers. You can hold the snack, touch it, and, of course, eat it. Senses Salon and Day Spa provides services such as facials, body scrubs, manicures, and pedicures. Though you feel better after one of their treatments, you cannot hold or touch the treatment. Producers might produce producer goods, intermediate goods, or final goods. Producer goods are goods, such as machinery, that help in the production of other goods and services. Intermediate goods are goods that are used as inputs in the production of other goods and services. You will realize that both producer goods and intermediate goods are capital goods. Final goods are goods that are bought by consumers for use or consumption. Some goods can be both an intermediate good and a final good depending on the consumer. In Trinidad, National Flour Mills Limited combines the 4 factors of production to produce the Lotus all-purpose flour that consumers in Trinidad and Tobago buy. If Mrs. Blake buys this flour to prepare bread and roti for her family, then this flour is a final good. However, if Kiss Baking Co. buys this flour to bake bread and cakes for sale to consumers in the region, then this flour is an intermediate good. Other producers might buy the intermediate goods from a firm to produce other final goods. Consolidated Appliances might buy paint from Penta Paints to coat its gas cookers. The paint is an intermediate good. Productivity is a measure of output per unit of input. Labor productivity is output per unit of labor input. For example, number of refrigerators made per person employed. Production is simply the act of converting raw materials to goods and services, whereas productivity is a measure of how rewarding a factor of production is in terms of output produced. While labor productivity is often spoken about, especially among trade unions, economists also measure the productivity of land and the productivity of capital. Breakdown showing the types of productivity. Each factor of production provides a factor service. For this factor service, the factor receives a factor payment. This factor payment is also called a factor reward, or a factor earning. For land we get rent. For labor we get wages, for capital we get interest, and for entrepreneurship we get profit.